What's up guys, and welcome back to the infamous project. This is now going to be part 3 of David's average Fox transformation, making it above the average Fox and ultimately better than it was by the time that it leaves the shop. So we've done heater core, evaporator core, tons of interior wiring cleanup, painted up the engine bay, painted the valve covers, reloomed all the harness, swapped out the headlights, swapped out the fog lights, LED bulb conversion, stereo install in the doors, kill mat, and well, here we are. So now we got to finish up the few little interior tidbits, and I actually forgot my GoPro yesterday when I was going over some of the last details. So you can see I've actually got a vapor barrier installed on here, fresh armrest pads and window switches. But don't worry, I haven't touched any of the passenger side stuff. So we'll get involved in that today a little bit. I was testing out things such as the door locks, which work great, and the power windows, which I found ultimately that the passenger side is not working from the driver's side switch. So I'm hoping it is just the switch button itself, and we'll be able to diagnose that quite easily. I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So hopefully we'll be on the home stretch to buttoning this car up. So be sure to stay tuned and check out the Average Fox Transformation Part 3. So just tightening down the last of the armrest pad, and I believe these are Daniel Carpenter. I've noticed sometimes you have to maneuver the screw to make sure that you're getting it into the actual clip or retainer, whatever you want to call it, where it actually grabs, because sometimes I just feel like there's a little bit of leftover rubber or molding from the injection that can kind of cover the area where the screw is supposed to go in. So just be mindful of that and make sure that it is going where it should be and torquing everything down. So it's a great opportunity to clean out all the dirt and debris that you can find in here. And this, ultimately, all this dirt, guys, chances are is from that vapor barrier that's missing inside the doors. So the vapor barrier definitely helps keep all that type of stuff from where it shouldn't be. I know you don't see this, but it's one of those things. Why do you want a bunch of dust and dirt where it doesn't belong? So now we're going to move on to the window switch. So we have a brand new bezel to go in there, this one here. So I'll show you guys what the deal is there. So here's our switch, and this car being a 91, it has the ability that allows you to actually disconnect this assembly from the harness. I believe the 92, 93, this is all one piece. So if you want to you either need to unscrew the switch assembly from the plate, or you're pulling the whole harness through the door. So there's our switches. Now, one thing you're gonna have to keep in mind when you order these new bezels, see this little metal tab? Well, this keeps the bezel in place on the armrest, and well, guess what? You do not get this with your new ones. So if you're missing this altogether, then you're gonna have to opt to buy this separately. If you're just replacing like we are here, then simply remove your old one and install it onto the new bezel. And you can get new switches. I do feel like some of the lock unlock buttons are back ordered because they're reversed depending on which side of the car you're on, but you can interchange them. Just your lock might end up being unlock and your unlock might end up being lock. So just keep that in mind. I'm not sure if they've fulfilled or restocked as of yet. To be honest, I kind of like these screws that they used on here better than the factory ones. They have a flatter or larger head which I feel like disperses the pressure a little bit better, because these are prone to crack. And sometimes you get a plastic weld or epoxy those back together. All right, so there's our new switch assembly installed there. And then now we can pass that through. There's that retainer clip at the bottom. And then put your screw in the top. And I feel like they did a good job in terms of making this a tiny bit smaller than the factory one, because the factory one just put so much pressure and would create like these bumps in the actual metal trim on the face, and would just make it prone to cracking in the corners and along the bottom, which I just did that on my own. But there we go, guys. Pretty much a brand new looking armrest. We got new little caps here that we'll be installing as well. But let's make sure we test that window functionality before anything else. Okay, so we got the armrest plugged in over there, which is important because we can't test anything unless that side is plugged in. So even if this side's plugged in, that side has to be, in order to make sure that things are going to work. So now I need to take this plate off, and we're going to flip the switches around and see if ultimately it fixes our problem. I do recommend you disconnect your battery because this is live power, but let's look at that. So the problem lies with this switch right here. So not a big deal, just got to go find another one of these. I'll pop it in there and we'll be good to go. So let's do some vapor barrier here. Now, I'm not sure who makes these ones, to be completely honest with you, but they are pre-cut. You see here for your door handle, and even all the little holes for the Christmas tree retaining clips. So they're pretty much designed to be plug and play. They've got like these little feet, if you will, that go into these areas here. And there's a cutout for that. What I like to do is, got some butyl tape here. So this is left over from quarter glass install, and it works quite well. It's, you know, you can pull it and just kind of make a nice long string is the best way I can describe it. You can relive your youth of playing with Play-Doh or any other weird fun kid product that your parents probably hated that you played with because it got everywhere. So what you're going to want to do, and you're going to want to make sure obviously that your door is clean, and we've washed this numerous times, and you're going to want to make sure that you check and you make sure that your locks are working, your windows are working. It's going to want to stick to you. So you might fight it a little bit. It's pretty easy, guys. You can just line up the holes, you know, where your Christmas trees are going to go through. And it might not be 100%, but it's going to be close. And then just push down. So now comes the time to get the rear plastics out because we need to swap out the belts and just looking at whatever else we might need to do in here. So it's always interesting to see what people use to fabricate the spare tire well cardboards or particle boards, whatever you want to call it. So they had that there, it was kind of doing its thing, but then looks like somebody cut that piece that goes on the back portion there of the flip up part of the backrest of the seat. I'm not sure what that was all about, but there's only one side, so this is now kind of useless. So probably see if we got something that we can swap that out with. I think I might have an extra one at home, I'm not sure. So I'm going to pull the rear seat backs out to make my life easier in terms of getting the rear plastics out. I'm going to show you guys how to do that right now. All right, so a lot of people actually fight with trying to get the rear plastics out sometimes because they don't understand how the seat back assembly works. So somebody's already taken this one off. That actually wasn't me. And I forgot my Milwaukee, so we're doing stuff the old school way here, which is fine. So you can separate the seat from this flap. Ultimately, this flap is going to come out, which has two 7/16 bolts on either side of it, and normally has a couple self-tapping screws. And the funny thing is, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 holes. And I want to say from factory, they only use 3 out of the 5. So they never even put them all in there, but I will make sure that once we're putting everything back together here, that it is all put back proper. Once you have that, this can come out like this. Go. So, once you got the seat backs loose here, if you flip up this part on the end, you can see there's 3 7/16 bolts here. So we'll take this Phillips screw out. This side's actually pretty exposed. Good news, found my Milwaukee. Those. Okay, so once you have those pieces unbolted, you can literally pull out and slide the seat off the bushing that's in the center here. Just like that. To remove these, which I forget what this is, 16 millimeter maybe, and that ultimately will allow you to get the rear plastics out without cutting them to trying to get them around those, or whatever other creative things people have done because they don't know how they come out properly. The rear plastics are out of the car. Everything was pretty uneventful. Probably the biggest struggle was getting a pipe or a bar on the Torx bolt for the lower section of the rear seat belt. But if you look down there, look at that collection of stuff that you find in the average Fox. And the worst part is that somebody's gone through the extent of changing the carpet, which means if they change the carpet, they had the rear seat out, they had the console out, all of these things, and they could have cleaned, or I don't know, maybe all that junk is since the carpet's been changed. I have no idea. But regardless of that, depending on when this black interior conversion was done, I don't think anybody took any time to clean up or anything in here. Or again, maybe it happened afterwards. You never know, because these cars are that old. We don't know at what point things have been changed, swapped over, so on and so forth. So this can be a job for the super clean, and yeah, we'll let it do its thing. We'll get everything cleaned up in here, wipe all that down. We have all of our sound deadening in here from factory, which is great. We'll probably do a couple extra little strips of kill mat here and there, same style and way that I did it on the doors. Nothing crazy. We're not trying to wrap the whole car in it. Just put some strips in strategic locations so that it just dampens the noise and the echo when noise is traveling through the body of the car. So we got the plastic sitting here down on the ground. Again, you can see how filthy these things are. So I'm gonna spray these down, clean these up, and then get the soldering iron nice and hot, and we'll start plastic welding some of these areas, like right here. And where's the other one? There's a couple other spots. Oh, here's a big one in the back here. So we'll try and get this all in one piece again, and that way hopefully it'll last a little while longer, because save the black interior, guys, especially the OG original stuff, right? Before, after. Plastic welded right here. What I like to do is penetrate and get right in the line of the crack, making sure that if your plastic pressed together in a way where you can almost not see the crack on the front side. Now, nothing's going to be perfect when you're done. You just want to try and get it as close as possible. So if you guys can look there, kind of almost looks like a piece of hair, but it's better than a gaping crack. And so once you press it together and you kind of get down in the groove, kind of penetrate in between to melt the plastics, and then so I go with the crack, and then after I go perpendicularly across the crack and drag the melted plastic out across to give more reinforcement, so to speak, or material. I guess it's similar to penetrating and how you would with some welding. You're just doing it with plastic. We're not perfect here, but it's reinforced and saving some original black. If you really wanted to get serious about it, you could actually plastic weld from this side as well, sand it down and use a textured spray paint. All right, one of my least favorite things to do, door pins. So time to take the Dremel, cut the pin in half, usually the best way to do it. And then got a jack underneath the door here. So hopefully this isn't going to be too painful. Doesn't get much better than that. This door handle's driving me nuts. It's a cheap aftermarket. See how it points out more? We might have to change that, guys. Good thing I haven't put the door panel back on yet. So just as a point of reference, see how that handle's sticking on an angle like this? Remember that, okay? It's a million times better. Remember when I had my finger like this? Now it's much more flush. This is an aftermarket handle as well. I don't know what brand that one is. But anyways, I'll go with that any day of the week. over this. And normally Depot used to be the guys who made good stuff, especially their headlights, but they just have way too much angle to dangle. You can see the quarter glass that I'm putting in. These are the Scott Drake, not Daniel Carpenter's. And I have them taped off, I have them scuffed up, and I have them prepped because I'm still gonna hit them with trim paint. And the reason for that is that these might look really nice out of the box. However, this rubber or injection molding, whatever you want to call it, is actually quite shiny and it's pretty rubbery over stock. But these ones, I've used them before. You can use the studs, what they're intended to do, and draw the glass right against the butyl tape on your quarter panels without any worries. So I just want to make sure that in terms of UV protection, I am going to use the SEM high build primer and then the SEM trim paint, and that'll probably happen tomorrow, but they're all prepped out and ready to go. So I'll show you guys how to remove this quarter glass here. As you can see, they've got the famous quarter glass covers on, and oops, just broke that. Man, I could use these on the shitbox Fox. But let's see here. Let's see how bad these look underneath. They used a lot of glue down there. I've seen a lot worse, but you know, served its purpose. So it's coming off. You know what? Let's knock out. We'll pull this quarter glass out and show you guys how to do that real quick. Quarter glass studs are held in with 9mm nuts. I've gone over this multiple times, guys. So just zip all the nuts off. Take note, you're going to see there's a couple hiding, especially in the 90 through 93 where this mount is elevated for the rear seat belt. You got to kind of look for that last one. It's going to be hiding down in there. So I feel the best way is to use this natural seam here, and whether you have a panel popper or something that you can slide in there. Now don't put tons of force, guys, just, you know, slow and steady wins the race. So slow and steady, and that's going to slowly, you can hear the butyl tape pulling. Alright, and once you kind of see it coming off the top there, you can get your hand behind it and just keep pulling. Don't, like, constant pressure there, and you'll see it'll release. Alright, so that looks a million times better. Probably give it one more wipe down with some alcohol before we put the new butyl tape on, and then we'll put the glass in. Now you guys are maybe wondering, well, are you not doing the rest of the trim? And the answer is no. I talked to David about it and I said, do you want me to just leave these quarter glass in the box until you go and paint the car? Because ultimately he does want to get the body and paint redone. And he's like, no, I want the nice new glass in there, and you know, he wants to enjoy the car as is. Then when paint time comes, ultimately they're gonna have to get pulled out again to get a proper paint job. This is probably one of my biggest pet peeves, when people don't take these out for paint. And like, you can get really creative, like tuck a piece of wire behind the molding so that it's up away from the car and you can get paint down in behind there. But honestly, guys, for a little bit of time that it takes to just lay your rear plastics over and get the rear quarter glass out, just do it right. So like I said, it's getting later in the day. I'll probably paint those up tomorrow. I have to pick up some more butyl tape, so I'm not going to be installing those right now. But I'm going to move on to something else, which is this JBL Base Pro hub sitting in the spare tire well here. I've done a full video and review on this thing on my 91 Wild Strawberry Dutch car, and I was really impressed with the sound. Now we've already upgraded the door speakers, and the dash speakers were good. They were Polk audio. The rear speakers are all Polk audio. So I asked David, I said, listen, man, you've already got RCAs, a remote wire, and power wire running your car. Do you want me to go ahead and get one of these units for your spare tire well? And he said, yeah, sure, why not? So I'm gonna go ahead now and hook this thing up. Guys, this is the 11-inch version. You can get them off Amazon, reconditioned for 350 bucks. So it's an 11-inch sub in there. And there's actually a straight through hole, which allows you to put your factory, style hook down there and screw it down, if you will. I will be putting Dynamat down here in the spare tire well just to kind of absorb some of the bass and any potential rattles that this unit might make. The other nice thing is that if you don't have RCA cables, there are high level inputs on here. So these thinner wires are minus the blue. The blue is the remote wire. So the remote wire goes up to a 12-volt ignition to know that the car is on, to switch the subwoofer on. But here's the high-level inputs here. So these you could tap right into your rear speaker wires, and that'll feed the sub, give you your input. But in this case, we've got RCAs back here, so we're just going to plug them into here. You have power and ground, super easy. So again, we already had a power wire run here and got a ground wire over there already tested and grounded up. So I'm going to go ahead and finish off these terminal connections, and we'll be able to test this guy out. All right, all our wiring is hooked up. Again, we don't need the high level inputs because we're using the RCAs. So only one thing left to do. Let us try this thing out. So I put in a small circuit breaker here. So that's running off the battery. And if anything happens, shorts in the back, it'll pop the circuit breaker and you can click it back. It's perfectly designed for 8-gauge wire, and that's all we need for this little unit in the back. Everything is good. Don't want to hit any copyright sounds, so go ahead, turn this off. We can clean up our wiring. All right, so I've said it before, I'll say it again. That little subwoofer really fills the car. Like, it just gives you that little bit more bass that you would hope that you could hear without wanting to, try and blow your hair or blow your eardrums out. It also comes with this little remote here, so I'll have to find a spot to hide it. And that way you can adjust the low pass filter, the bass boost, the gain, or you can adjust the phase at 0 or 180 out. So there we have it. We know that this is wired up and we know that it works, which is great. The wire is actually long enough. I could probably run this right into the glove box, so maybe I'll do that. So I think that's going to be it for today in terms of what I'm going to get done. When I come back tomorrow, as long as I have my butyl tape, I'll probably be able to button up the whole interior, and that'll be checked off the list and it'll be done. And not to say, we've done some exterior stuff too, because it'll be quarter glass, changed the door handle, did door pins, and then we'll see what everything looks like on the underside of this car once, it's kind of moving under its own power again. Maybe I'll free up the lift with the twin turbo Coyote car, and then we'll knock out the finale of David's average Foxbody, soon to be the above average Foxbody. So see you then.